Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Now I've called this the last of its kind. It might not be, but it could be. Talking nonsense again. Basically, I'm going to mount an orchid, I hope, before it dies. It's never done well for me. It was doing better around the other place for a while, but it stayed on the mount it came on, which meant any moss that was involved was also the moss that it came with, and it got old and the plant started to deteriorate. Then I had the house move and everything else upset it, and I eventually put it in a pot, and it was always obvious that it wasn't one plant, it was several small plants, probably a cluster taken out of a flask, you know, and literally planted together on the mount. And it did okay for a while, but it just went downhill. Having put it in a pot as a group of plants, it's now over half of those plants have died. I've got 2 left, and I don't know whether they're going to have roots on, but as a last ditch attempt they're going to go on a mount. And I haven't done a mount for an awful long time, but I don't do mine necessarily the same as other people. I do them for speed rather than anything else, rather than aesthetic appearance, shall we say. So we'll bring the camera down, get in a bit closer because it is a tiny plant, and we'll get going. Well, that's quite close, but might be a bit too close, but we'll see how we get on. Hopefully it'll all be in shot. Right, so this is the little plant. I've got a mount. That mount's a bit big, but the only other one I've got that's smaller is minute, and there wouldn't be enough room for roots to grow. I've got some thin bonsai wire. I use that because it doesn't rust or deteriorate in any shape or form, because it's coated aluminium, and my wire cutters. And in here we've got some brown stained water. So what we've actually got is some RO water with some seaweed and some CalMag, hopefully to give this a start and get it going. We'll put some moss in to soak. It does take a while to soak in. Far too much there. Put some back before it gets wet. Yeah, that's more like it. Bits of grass and stuff in here, which I always try and hook out if I can. Bits of stick. So quality assurance is not what it once was. But at the end of the day, it's harvested from the wild, you know, and goes in a bag. Well, it gets compressed into a bale and goes in a bag. So there was a time when this stuff used to have bits of gorse in it, so you get thorns in your fingers while you were doing this sort of thing. And that was really pleasant. So there we go, that's some moss soaking in seaweed and CalMag. So that's that bit. Now I've got wet hands. Where's my cloth? This is the only time you'll see me working wet, when I'm doing anything to do with changing media or anything. Right, we'll get this out of its pot. I haven't got my tray here, but there's not much media in here. In fact, most of it can just go back in that pot. We'll just tip it and see what happens. So I don't make quite so much. You know, the plant's just fallen off the top. It has virtually no roots. In fact, it has no viable roots. That's the only one, and it's broken. These are just rotten, as you can see. So we have no viable roots. So the only way this plant's going to survive is if it grows some. Scissors. Just going to trim off what is obviously just dead stuff. Try and keep the mess in one place. See, these roots are just rotten. That one there might just about be hanging in there, but that one's gone, and that one's definitely gone. So these two plants are actually joined together, I think. Actually, they're not. So we've got one. See, this root here, this bit of the root is alive, but the bit that's joined onto the plant isn't. So it's difficult to say. I'm going to leave it there, just, you know. And this one does have a root, one, and some dead bits. So we've got two little plants basically, which is good. It means I can have sort of two goes at this, and we'll put them in a separate place on the mount. Right, mess out of the way. Two little plants. The plants aren't dead, and I mean they've both got a new leaf growing. So there is potential that these could get going again, but it'll be only just. If we're going to have two, we'll have one up there, and another one down here, and if we start getting roots whizzing out from the sides of the moss, I can always add a bit more moss. So that's the moss in place. Now, see, technically this plant ought to go that way up. That's the way they would grow naturally, like that, rather than like that. And I sometimes wonder whether that actually has an effect on whether the plant does well or not. So I'm actually going to plant it the way up it's supposed to go. So we'll have two little plants like that. And we'll put a bit more moss around the base of the plant and over the single root that we've got. These come from shady ravines, often found quite low down and almost always found near water. So they're obviously used to a humid environment. You have to bear in mind most epiphytes grow on mossy parts of trees rather than on bare parts of trees. And if they come from a moist environment that's quite high in humidity, then that moss that they're growing in on the trees would be constantly moist, even if it didn't get rained on. And obviously it would get rained on frequently. So we'll see what we can do. All this wire is for, really, is to hold everything in place. It's not trying to grip or do anything other than just gently hold things in place. That's all its job is. I'm just going to cut that twirly end off, because it's not needed. Get out of the way. Right, so now what I always do with a piece of wire is I start by bending a piece round the back, like that. That effectively gives me a grip. Yeah? Now we can just put a wire over the base of the plant, round the back. I'm going to go round again a bit higher up to hold the moss in place, and then come back round a bit lower down, at which point we will have a bit of a faff because I need to go underneath the leaves, so I will have to lift the leaves up to hold. I'm not holding anything to do with the plant, I'm just holding the rest of that moss. and I'm going to wire these separately. Whoops, that's that one fallen off. In a way that's good, that allows me to deal with this one on its own. So I will cut that wire now, and then we will go and find the original end that I bent round the back when I started, which was the one at the top, wasn't it? There it is, that one there, and that one, and we will just twist them together like that. And because this is fine wire, I don't need to mess with pliers or anything. I can twist this quite tight on my own. And then I'm just going to tuck that in like that, and that pulls it tight. And we can just trim those ends off so that we don't poke our fingers. And then we'll go back to all the moss that's fallen off. Yeah, I thought I didn't stop and think that through very well, did I? The fact that I had to turn it upside down to deal with the wire for the first plant. This will be quite good, this one down the bottom, because if and when it survives and starts to get some size to it and gets back to blooming size, the spikes are pendulous and the spike will hang down below the mount. And that will look quite nice. Quite nice. Right, so another bit of wire. Do exactly the same thing, same principle. First thing I like to do is make sure that my coil of wire is going to uncoil without getting hooked up, because the last thing you want is to be messing about once you start. So again, enough to go round the back. Now you've seen what it's for twisting. Yeah? And we go around the base of the plant first, twist our piece round the back, that's for in a minute. And then take our coil round, like that. Again, a little bit higher to hold the moss, and then come back round and come down. I've only got one leaf to go below this time, and hold the rest of the moss. Trim that off. Now we're safe to go upside down and go and find the other bit, and twist the two together, and pull it as I twist, and it'll twist in towards the mount. Push these pieces in, hold everything nice and firm, trim the ends off. Now what's missing? What's missing is a tag, and I will get a tag because with a hole in the tag it can thread over there and hang down the back and be tucked inside these wires. So that there is a tag on it. It is the only Arengus I've got, and I am unlikely to get any others, although we'll see how we go, because I do like them a lot. The problem is they are most are up the warmer end of intermediate, and they don't take too kindly to being cold in the winter. However, if they were well established with the good root system, they would merely stop growing during the winter, which is not the end of the world. So they should survive. I mean, I do keep intermediate temperatures. So although I keep worrying about the cold of the winter, really, you know, I'm going down to a minimum of 14. Well, intermediate is sort of 10 to 12, so I'm warmer than, you know, the low end of intermediate. So the intermediate plants should do okay here. But for some reason they haven't been, and I still think, you know, there were consequences of moving house, changing environments, and in a lot of cases with my mounted orchids they just stayed on the mount too long, the moss got old and tired, and the root systems degraded. And then add on top of all the other stress levels that they had to put up with, a lot just didn't come out the other end. So starting from scratch with some new ones, the only adaptation they've got to do is from where I buy them to here, one off. I think things might do a bit better. I miss having mounts around, I must admit. I don't necessarily miss the workload that goes with them, but I miss having them around. I've got 4 at the moment. That's all I've got left. This is now 5. We'll see how they go. We'll see how they do. Very attractive blooms. One of the only Arengus that's got colour in it. They're nearly all a sort of, well, anything from white through the creams to straw colour, some greeny tinges, some yellowy tinges, but they don't tend to have colour on them. This is one of the, well, it's the only one I actually know of that's actually got a nice blob of reddy orange in the centre. Anyway, a quick mount, we'll see how it does, keep our eye on it, and hopefully with a little bit of a kick from the moisture around the base of the plant to encourage some root growth, plus anything that gets into that plant from this moss is going to have seaweed and CalMag in it to try and help give the plants a start. But like I said, if you didn't see the root systems on these plants, you'd just think they were young plants growing on. New leaves, green leaves. Yeah, it's just the roots that have gone. So if we can get some more and get some new ones, it should pick up, or they should pick up. We'll see how we go. See you next time. Bye for now.